Hi, I'm Dr. Voice and I'm here with the amazing Tony Selimi. And why is Tony Selimi amazing? And that's a question I think we're all asking at this moment in time due to this amazing book called A Path to Wisdom that Tony has penned himself from his experience. I'm very intrigued because a lot of people have been talking about this book, from Dr. Di Martini, who's also given a great forward on the book, and with another book you got coming up as well. But this really intrigues all of us really to find out what urged you to write this book.
From an early age, Doc, I had the desire to write a manual that will help humanity heal. At that age, I was repairing TVs, I was repairing radios, and I had this knowledge within myself to be able to just fix things. In the environment I grew up, apart from facing a lot of physical challenges within my body and illnesses, and having gone through those illnesses from the moment I was born, I observed a lot of pain around me. I observed how my mother was being abused. I observed how women are being treated in the society. I observed how children are being treated. I observed how we were forced to think and feel according to what the regime and the society were telling us how to behave.
So, the physical dysfunctionality you mentioned, what was that?
Well, I had crooked legs when I was born, and I could not walk up to the age of 3.5. So I used to observe the world from a cot, being tied up in a cot. And I can remember the screams and the pain I used to have when my mother used to use to tie my legs up to be able to help me straighten my legs. Because in those days, we didn't really have a physiotherapy.
How long did this go on for?
For about 3.5 years, until I started walking. I remember my parents and I remember my sisters, when they would take me for a walk, they had to hold me almost like high up. And only I could put my toes on the land because my legs were almost like in a circle.
What a strange experience. And what did this do to you? I mean, did you, as a child, obviously, did you know what was going on with you? What was your experiences?
Well, I definitely knew that something is wrong. And I definitely knew about what pain meant. And I also knew that the circumstances in which all of this was happening was beyond my control and my parents' control. But I also observed children running free and not being able to play with children like normally children would play at that age, and almost observing things that you want but you can't have.
So you must have felt segregated from normal society or normal way of living.
Absolutely, at the beginning of my life, basically. Now you can imagine from that early age when you're not really in a position to make sense of those things. As a child, you feel. And I was feeling that separation, but also I was feeling, you know, the pain of being alone.
Which is obviously another book that you're writing about, that loneliness, isn't it? What's the title of that book?
Yes, the new book, which is going to be published this year, it's called The Science of Oneness, Breaking Through Loneliness, the Virus of Modern Age.
The Virus of Modern Age. That is quite a title. And I can actually bear with you on that there are a lot of lonely people in this world, but you're coming from your experience of your youth and that loneliness you must have experienced. You're writing from that point.
Yes, from that point, and from having worked with thousands of people sharing their experiences with me and sharing their loneliness and sharing their pain and sharing their emotional journey, whether it's been their personal journey, whether it's been a health challenge, whether it's been losing their loved ones. Some of them, they've lost, like, you know, their parents, their partners. Some of them, they actually even lose their children as young as 3 or 4 or baby born. And people are left with an emptiness and a void in themselves.
Yes. So going back to Path to Wisdom, How did that come about in terms, you know, because I know the loneliness book is your next one, but was Path of Wisdom a sort of the first initial thing to bring about this loneliness book? Was it the beginning of something?
Well, Path to Wisdom is almost like a mathematical formula that almost unlocks human potential, unlocks our own healing abilities, unlocks how our mind works, but also it unlocks the intelligence we are all born with. So the same intelligence which is within our body, the same intelligence that governs the universe, the entire universe, the way our planet is, the way everything within the planet works, the way that plants are, you know, extracting the light and, you know, feeding themselves through the light. The same intelligence is in each one of us. Now that intelligence has the power to richly rebalance our body. So when we have any form of illness, that intelligence also knows how to heal the body. But there's a problem with that. We lose the trust in our own abilities to heal our body.
You're known as a healer, which is what I feel the book Path to Wisdom is written from, that healing point. Tell us more about your healing experience and how that brought you to write the book.
My healing started as young as 3-year-old child. But then I was hit with an illness at the age of 9, which left me paralyzed in hospital for 2.5 years. 6 months out of this, I was totally in out-of-body experiences.
This is on top of the tourniqueting of the legs. Later on in life, then you were hit with another illness.
Correct. So basically, this lasted, I had a severe pneumonia, which affected my heart, so I had also a heart illness, and then my entire immune system shut down. And my body was left in this coma for almost 6 months, where doctors gave up, and my parents, on the last week before my supposed death, my mother was given a note saying, "Your child will die."
Then what happened?
Well, my mother has never really given up on me. My mother has always been a believer that I will make it. So they took me to a lot of spiritual healers. And my mother prayed and, you know, did her own job in going into different sacred tombs and lighting candles and working with those spiritual healers. Now, 6 months down the line, I started regaining consciousness within myself. And I started observing this old man working with me with energy and giving me blessed water and giving me certain herbal products. But I felt better and better and better and better. And then I started really building this curiosity. How on earth an old man who's never been to school, never practiced medicine, never been to university to study medicine, never really gone through the medical and the scientific approach, can do something that doctors could never do? So I built that curiosity from a very young age to really question, what are we being taught? Is this real or is it not? And I also observed when I was in hospital, when I was having my first out-of-body experiences, I used to go from room to room in hospitals. And I used to observe so many children and so many elderly and sick people and people from cancer and people dying every day. And I just simply knew I had this desire to bring healing to those people and help those people to see another smile with their loved ones.
Can we just go back a bit there and say you left your body? When you talk about out-of-body experience, how old were you?
9 years old.
And you actually experienced floating out of your body, or what was the experience?
The experience is basically when you go through any form of coma, you actually literally leave the body and you can see everyone around you, you can see what's happening and you can remember everything they're doing on you. But you observe literally your body lying dead. And you can observe the room, you can observe all of those things. Now, this continued to happen to me. And as a child, I was very curious because I could just float around. And I did not really know what out-of-body experience was until later on in life when I actually started meeting scientists and people who wrote books about it. Because back then, when I used to tell my parents this, they used to think that the nurse will tell me what happened. But my grandfather used to know what I'm talking about.
So you used to tell stories to your grandfather of floating around,
yes,
and he would understand that.
Absolutely.
But no one else would.
No one else would.
So this sent you on a path of discovery to find out more about this outer body. What happened then? I mean, your curiosity, what has it brought you to this? Because I've heard that you do this still today. After all this time, you're still able to float around. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So there's a part of me which basically I always love to learn about the spiritual development and basically the things that we have almost suppressed in ourselves. We are spiritual beings, and with that spiritual beings we have abilities that we are not being taught, and they are being suppressed. So it's only most people who go through almost like severe illness or comas, when the body shuts down, that the spirit lives.
Well, I had an experience where I fell off a balcony, and I do remember leaving my body and looking at the top of an ambulance with a big red cross on it in Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, no. And then I went into a coma after that.
Yeah.
But I could never make myself visit that again. I often wondered how I could do that again. Is there a way to do that?
Yes, there's so many ways to do that. And this is one of the reasons I wrote Path to Wisdom, to help really people, first of all, to be able to bring their body into perfect balance, but also restore perfect health, as well as create that inner peace that is required for you to be able to listen to your own soul, and being able to listen to that voice and being able then to work with that and overcome the fears that prevents us from doing lucid out-of-body experiences, where you consciously raise your vibration of the body through certain exercises, being to leave the body and actually being able to observe your body. And this is the teachings and the studies that's done at the International Academy of Conscious Evolution, where basically they constantly teach people how to do out-of-body experiences.
Wow. Back to Path to Wisdom then. Is that where do you integrate this information in the Path to Wisdom book at all, or what happens?
This is later on. A Path to Wisdom is the formula to help you to get to that moment. But basically, going back to how I wrote the book, it's after having all of those illnesses, I studied science, I studied maths, I studied physics, I studied the biology of the body, and I became one of the top students back in Macedonia. So I won many awards for physics and science, and I was extremely interested in quantum physics and physics, and being able to try to put an understanding behind my irrational experiences that I was having as a kid. And that lasted about 7 years of having restored to perfect health, to then civil war hitting the country. And I was forced to join the former Yugoslav army, and at the age of 18, literally joining a war, a civil war that I despised. My entire being rejected that. So going from one adversity to another adversity that brought me to a whole different space, I kept questioning about what is it within the humanity that makes us be like that.
It seems to me that, hearing your story now, that you've certainly faced pain in your life at a very early age and endured it through. In this endurance that you've managed to go through and be who you are now today, is this wisdom culminated from this endurance? Is this wisdom you feel being a part of all these terrible adversities that you've experienced, being what's enabled you to have this wisdom to bring this book about?
Yes, it's a collective things, all the collective experiences, as well as becoming a good channel to receive higher level of consciousness within the body. Together, all of that has enabled me, first of all, to look at life from a much higher perspective.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's look at higher level of consciousness, because that's interesting. What is higher level of consciousness?
Well, when you think about it, if you think about our world, we tend to think our world as a big thing. But if you put our world, and if the two of us, we were to go to Mars, for instance, and we observe our planet from Mars, it's a tiny dot. Now, if we were to observe our galaxy from another galaxy, it's a tiny dot. If you go in the further galaxy, it does not even exist. So there is intelligence that governs all of that. And there is intelligence that richly created us. Some people might call it God. Other people might call it divine energy. Some people might call it Mohammed. Others will call it Buddha. All of those people who've come into our planet and all of those master teachers, they all had a message, including ancient people. Ancient people did not have modern medicine. They used ancient healing techniques to heal humanity. So modern medicine came about after us discovering and creating the science. But we're still doing the same things what ancient people used to do many years ago. So you've experienced how I can remove pain. Many of my clients, when they come, I put my hands into their head and migraine disappears within 5 minutes. She called me from South Africa at 4 o'clock in the morning, experienced severe migraines. And she said to me, Tony, I would really love a healing. So I woke up, I connected distantly, put my hands as she's normal in front of me. I did my job. She opens her eyes and she said, it's gone. It's gone. How did you do that? I felt your hands. How is that possible?
Could that be placebo though, because she's believing that?
If it is placebo, let's say there's a lot of credit to placebo effect. But placebo does not feel. Placebo does not feel the energy. You don't feel that somebody is touching you with placebo effect. That's the difference.
And you do when you're being healed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard many cases where
people will feel that there's somebody near you,
yeah.
And that's not a placebo.
No, that's a real feeling.
That's a real feeling.
Well, I've had
so you can distinguish that. So there's placebo effect for sure. I mean, doctors use it, the medical industry uses that, and people use it then. But there's a difference when we connect. Now, the science has reaches up. If somebody studies quantum physics, they will actually be able to understand how a lot of healers do astral travel. I mean, that's nothing new on our planet. And there have been scientists who've been studying this for years. So why is that not taught from a very young age? That's a question for humanity and for every single government and every single educational system. Why are we not teaching our children to be able to meditate, to be able to really embrace who they are as spiritual beings?
Is this why you wanted your manual for life? What do you call it?
Well, it is, I called it, I wanted to create a manual for humanity.
A manual for human beings.
Yes.
That's a fascinating concept. And Path to Wisdom is the beginning of this.
The beginning, correct. There are many books that I'll be bringing about, and the second book is already there. The third book I'm in the process of writing. So by end of this year, I will have 3 books. By the end of next year, I will have 3 more books. And all of them are extremely related. So having studied maths and science and physics and quantum physics and being an engineer and working in the technology world, I can see how my childhood dream, which was to be a space captain, to be an engineer, to be a heart surgeon, and to be, basically I wanted to be an architect. Those are the 4 things I wanted to be as a child. I never went to school then. I was at the age of 7 when I wanted those, and I used to look at the stars, and I used to imagine myself traveling through a spaceship. I did not watch Star Trek then. There was no Star Trek when I was growing up. I had no idea about technology, and nobody taught me. So the questions I had to myself, how did I know this? How did I know at the age of 6 I want to be an architect, an engineer, a spaceship traveler, and a captain for that matter, and I wanted to heal people's hearts. I wanted to be a heart surgeon. Now, when I look at what I have become after all of those life adversities, and when I know why I am living my purpose and why I brought a path to wisdom to the world, I have created my childhood dream. So you may ask me, let's say a space captain, a spaceship captain. So when you think about what does a spaceship captain do, he literally takes the crew to boldly go where nowhere else has gone before. That's what Star Trek is all about, to explore, to literally go to places and planets and infinity, and literally be explorers of our life, instead of being fed with fears of what's out there, but instead using our curiosity, something every child on this planet has.
It seems, Tony Selimi, that from a young age where you were fixing things, electronic equipment that you had no idea what you were doing, fixing radios, you were fixing all these things in your attempts out of your amazing curiosity from such a young age and adversities, and you've actually found now, it seems, through this fixing things, that you saw the one being that needed fixing was the human being. And I believe that that's your journey, is that correct?
Absolutely. It's sort of my journey is to really to help every single human being who's called to really accept the intelligence that's within ourselves and to access this childlike curiosity and our infinite abilities to grow, to share, to connect, to rebalance ourselves, and to be able to listen to ourselves, to who we truly are.
And all of these pieces of information, knowledge, experiences that you've had are all comprised within this one book, Path to Wisdom.
Yes, I mean the Path to Wisdom, my experiences I share about 1%, but they are very powerful. In my second book, The Science of Oneness, I go into the depth of those experiences. So it brings a whole new dimension, and everybody who's going to read about those experiences, there's something in every single word in those paragraphs that people will pick up and be able to relate to their own personal journey. So for them to find their own path to wisdom, for them to find that inner peace within ourselves that is required to heal our own lives. Because every human being on our planet will have somehow suffered some form of pain, some form of separation, some form of fears, some form of controlling things, and a lot of emotions when things are happening to us which are outside of our own control. So every human being on our planet, they go through those emotions. So they're not really specific to somebody. There's no such person on the planet that is always happy. There's no such person on the planet who's only bad. We tend to go, when something severe happens, we tend to switch our ego straight away, switch on, and then we label people. And in labeling, there's no healing.
Is this why you call this the TJ method?
Yes, the TJS method was born from my initials. And my name, Tony J Selimi, it's a translation in 3 languages. So Tony in Latin means priceless, something you cannot put value to. And this is something my grandfather used to tell everybody about me, that there's no value you can put to this child. And he used to say you will have a home in every part of the world. He used to compare me with a little lamb who can drink milk from every sheep, meaning no sheep will not want me to be fed and nurtured. He said your ability to connect with people and love people will open up millions of people's hearts. And now I can see that. Then it was only a dream.
Well, Tony Selimi, certainly it's been an absolute experience and joy to be sitting with you today to hear your incredible story, which has been heart-touching, heartwarming and very, very inspiring. And I really look forward to seeing and reading all your other books. I have had the opportunity to see Path to Wisdom and read it, and I look forward to many more. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Doc.